Hey everybody, welcome to the Target Audience Podcast. TJ here, joined with my esteemed co-host Ben.
Hey.
And Pierce.
I'm here.
And I say joined with, but these guys are going to be taking over this next episode because they watched House That Jack Built. I didn't. I wish I could say it's because I'm waiting for the director's cut or something like that, but no, I just haven't watched it yet. They got quite a few interesting points to make on it, so I'm just gonna exclude myself from this episode.
Well, now the
I'll let you know my thoughts later on.
He said I have good points to say.
Did I say good points?
Oh, he said
I just said a few points.
Now we have shoes to.
Do you want to redo
Thanks,
it?
TJ. No, I'm just kidding.
We can redo it.
Nope, too late. I'm already fucking with the sound settings.
Should I leave? Okay.
Yeah. Nope, bye. We're going mano a mano now.
Can we do like one of those like sad, like can you play like the Lonely Man theme?
I'm gonna play the
Hulk?
intro to the old Hulk.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Right.
yeah, same page.
Yeah,
That's our
great.
go-to sad walking away song.
Sad walking away
And then-
song for most of it, and then just like at the very end, it just goes hit the road. Jack then cuts off.
I feel like one of those like times when they're like, Ben, you can't keep the dog and you gotta like let it go, and then like I keep like coming back.
Just run away!
just
Get
go,
out of
you
here.
stupid
Just go.
animal. Just you start throwing rocks.
I don't love you anymore. Is that what you want to hear?
And that's your segue. Speaking of animal mutilation.
How's the Jack Built? America's #1 comedy. Honestly, this movie was funnier than I thought it was going to be. How's the Jack Built?
I don't know about that. I don't
This
know about
movie
funny.
was funnier than I thought it was going to be.
Alright. Why don't you tell me why you... you know what?
Not
No.
like the whole
No.
movie. Not the whole movie. Obviously not the whole movie.
Okay, let's talk about it. So this is Lars von Trier's newest movie, The House That Jack Built. Story follows Jack, a highly intelligent serial killer, over the course of 12 years, and depicts the murders that really develop his inner madman. I think this is probably the most accurate depiction of a serial killer
Yeah.
in anything,
like at
possibly.
least, like the mind of a serial killer.
Not necessarily just the mind, but even like the process
The
of how he
actions.
is. Yeah, because before we get into anything like substantial about this, because like I've got some like actual like insight into like serial killers in general, because that's kind of like
It's
something
I'm a
I'm
killer.
yeah, being a serial killer. But no, like I do have like an interest in serial killers. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts, watch a lot of true crime TV and stuff like that.
I love that kind of stuff.
What were your general impressions about this movie?
I thought there was points in the movie where Lars von Trier kind of shakes his ass a little bit,
Yes.
and there is a lot of good stuff in the movie. A lot of great stuff, in my opinion.
There's a lot of really good stuff in this movie.
like Matt Dillon's performance
Is
alone
astounding.
Is very good in this movie.
Mm-hmm. He plays somebody very well who doesn't know how human emotions are supposed to work.
And he reminded me of like Nicolas Cage, but like if Nicolas Cage was evil.
Yeah.
He was evil Nicolas Cage, just in certain
Okay,
scenes, but I didn't expect this movie to be as funny as it was. There's only a couple scenes that I thought were humorous.
Okay, you want to enlighten me?
Okay, the whole Uma Thurman scene was, I thought, really funny. And I think it's funny on purpose, because it's
She
a
is
scene
such
where
an
it's-
insufferable person. I think they want him to murder him.
Exactly. Like, you know
Or
the
her.
movie's a serial killer movie going in, so you know. The scene is him basically like she's like, "Oh, I'm all alone on a road. Will you help me?" And then he's like, "Okay, he's gonna kill her," but he's like, "Nah, I don't really want to do that." So it's like, "Oh, he's not really a serial killer."
Yeah.
And then she's like really insisting and pushing him, and he does it and takes her back, and everything's fine. There's no
Yeah.
point where she's just being a little annoying, and he could see him.
She's
getting
more than a
ups-
little annoying. She's outwardly hostile and demanding of a
She's
stranger.
very demanding and hostile and very pushy to a total stranger.
Yeah.
And you can see him getting upset. So you're like, oh, this is where the serial killer
Wincing
jumps out.
a snap.
And,
Yeah.
and it does it. It just goes on. It's like the scene goes on for a little bit. It's almost like tricking the audience. And
The first 20 minutes of the movie, I actually had to stop watching it last night, and I had to come back to it today to rewatch it.
oh, why was that?
Because it's just so drawn out.
Yeah, it is.
And it's waiting, and it's just so much like uncomfortable dialogue that like you have to be like in the right mindset to even like hook into it, I think.
Yeah, and I read about that specific scene, and Matt Dillon, it was like an interview with Matt Dillon.
Mhm.
He said, he's like, my interpretation of the scene was that he's helping out this girl, and what we hear her saying is not what she's actually saying. It's kind of what he views her saying.
It's his
almost his
filter.
conscious. Yeah, like his conscious, like
Mhm.
giving him a reason to kill
Yeah,
her.
because I mean, like, if you were to like try to recall any conversation you've had, you're not going to get the words somebody used correctly necessarily. You're going to get the inflection and the meaning behind their words are what's important when you retell a story. Because that's kind of the narrative device, is that he's not confessing his sins to somebody.
That's what they kind of set it up, like that's what it sounds like they're doing.
But he's very clearly not confessing. He's explaining his process and why he did what he did.
Why he does it. He doesn't explain that he feels remorse over it.
No.
He doesn't explain that he feels bad that he did it. It's just basically a glimpse into the mind of a serial killer.
Exactly.
The whole movie.
And the movie's pieced out into different sections or parts. Incidents is what they call it.
5, I believe.
Six in an epilogue, where it's specific incidents as there is kind of bridged, but by this dialogue between him and this character called Virgil, and it's a completely black screen. It's just a conversation as they kind of they talk about his killings being art, about having purpose, about how mortality and morality have no place in art. Mm-hmm. And him justifying his actions through that.
And that's where it kind of jumps, like, where it's... Obviously, the movie is kind of an allegory for Lars von Trier being a provocateur.
Yes.
And people not liking him because of it. And that's where this movie gets into the line of it being kind of him having his head up his ass a little bit. And
to an extent.
There's certain aspects of the movie where you can, like, really tell that he does have his head up his ass. But there's enough... I feel like there's enough good content in the movie that as a whole I would watch it again. I liked it. I thought there was a lot of the scenes were very like what's the word, like keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Yes,
the word for that.
There's high suspense moments. My only real negative complaint about this movie is that there's a couple conversations that are held that just go on way too long and are way too uncomfortable and awkward. I know that's intentional to an extent, but like in the second incident, he's pretending to believe he's stalking this woman with the intent of getting into her house, and he pretends to be a cop, and then he switches his act halfway through, and it's a very long conversation where just to convince this woman that to let him into her home. That's
another scene that I thought was quite humorous. Was him just being like, obviously it's like the early stages of him being a serial killer,
figuring his act out.
So he's like almost like a goofy, like awkward serial killer, and so it's just like him like did it?
Okay, no, we're good. His awkward. I think my hard drive might disconnect. I think it came slightly unplugged.
Oh, okay.
It's not. It's okay. The audio's fine.
But yeah, so he's like a goofy, awkward, going through puberty. Almost.
Yeah, because he doesn't he already has a problem interfacing with other people.
Exactly.
And he's kind of having to.
He's learning to emulate.
Put on a mask.
Yeah, emulate emotion and.
Yeah.
And interacting with people.
And like, and
that is normal.
And that is the intent of the scene. I just think it goes on a little long.
Yeah.
Same goes for the opening. I think there's some dialogue that could have been removed. It would have been just a little bit cleaner and still would have been just as effective. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see where you would like why you would think that and why, and that's probably more of a preference thing.
That's
I like
just
that
a
kind
preference
of stuff.
thing. Yeah,
I like that kind of stuff because I like that's why I like stuff like The Office, like where it's like very awkward conversations. I feel like that's always very entertaining for me.
Yeah,
awkward encounters.
Yeah, it just like I think it gets just a little bit too long in that regard. And those are just like, that's purely a me thing. But I think this movie does a lot of things incredibly well without even getting into specifics of it. Visually it's very interesting. Because he frames each murder basically as a piece of art.
Yeah, there's even a part where he's like posing dead bodies.
He's posing dead bodies.
And taking pictures and sending it to the news.
And his own delusions
and getting
are
a laugh out of it. Like, he's like, oh, some of the pictures actually came out quite humorous. And it's like pictures of dead bodies frozen in positions.
And there's one where he's got like a dead kid that he's
oh shit.
Yeah.
That one was very disturbing.
Yeah, and he poses this kid before rigor mortis sets in, and like he's keeping all these bodies in a freezer. And he poses the kid, and he's talking about how, like, through taxidermy, people are able to take wires and rods and force emotion and expression into dead things. And it pans back after he's having this conversation and showing like close shots of him like putting wooden dowels on this kid's arm to keep him straight and stuff like that. And then you look at it, and the kid is it's horrifying and grotesque. not just because he's a dead kid, but because like he's a fucked up dead kid. Like there's blood in his eyes, and like
his
it's
eyes
not
are bloodshot, and his like
the mouth is all.
His eyelids are like stretched open.
They're comically exaggerated.
Because the thing is that the kid was grumpy, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be here."
Yeah.
So he stretches the corner of the kid's mouth. He
gives almost like a Glasgow smile.
So it looks like almost like a Joker smile.
Yeah. And it's like very like, oh fuck, and there's one where he drags the one behind his car and he rolls the body over briefly, and you can see where the asphalt had just rubbed and eaten everything away.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh fuck.
The back of the dead body, the back of her head is like running on the road because he's just dragging it by his car. I think it's one of the weirdest escape scenes because like the cops come to the scene of the crime like right after he finishes.
Yeah.
And
he leaves literally a blood trail the entire way to his hideout.
He just like has the body hidden, and then all of a sudden he just ties a string to the back of his van, hops in, and just looks around left, right, just takes off with it. The whole time it's just like a trail leading directly to his little secret hideout of blood.
Then suddenly the heavens open up, so to speak, and the hardest rain he had ever seen pours.
And
he saw it as like divine forgiveness for his actions, and he's like, you know what, there is art in death.
Exactly.
And it gives him that validation in what he was doing. And it gives him a satisfaction that he never had felt with anything else.
Yeah, and you can tell in the scene too. Like he sees it's more than relief that he feels in the scene.
Yeah,
it's like amazement.
Yeah, like he feels in a way. I think he says that he feels blessed by it,
divinely superior.
Yes, because he's removed from it. He's the architect of this world. Like he creates these situations that.
Yeah, well, because in a way he's playing God.
Yeah,
saying who can live, who can die.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of serial killers, they're broken down into two categories, and then from those two categories come another four. So there's process killers and product killers, where product killers are more focused on the end result, which is what I think Jack is, where it's like, he finds art in the dead body itself and what he can do with it and how he can present it. He does this through, photography, posing them, doing all sorts of things, even just experiments. And then there's process killers, which are ones that get their validation from the act of killing, and they don't care about what happens afterwards.
Exactly.
And to an extent, he is a little bit of a process killer because he takes joy in finding different ways and more effective ways to do it.
Yeah, because he's comparing stuff and taking admiration in the Nazis, which for Lars von Trier is kind of bold to put that in a movie,
because there's kind of an allegory for his own actions in Jack. So it implies that he sees some virtue in what the Nazis did himself.
So no. Specifically, well, the whole movie itself is kind of like a metaphor for Lars von Trier,
his art,
him being him. But then there's also an actual controversy where Lars von Trier has said some stuff about Hitler.
Oh God, has he?
He has said I think he said something about either like he could understand where Hitler came or something something that was very sympathetic to the Nazis. So that's why this being an allegory for him and then having that in it, it was almost like there's a weird level of uncomfortableness.
Like, you don't do that. You cut that one out.
It's like you cut that out of the draft for the movie. Yeah. But he put it in anyway, and it works in the movie. It works with the character. Just that backstory behind it makes it kind of interesting.
And to even go further into this with my true crime knowledge, is that I think this is a really accurate representation of that.
Of like a Ted Bundy type.
I think Ted Bundy, but the thing is like he shows a lot of parallels to a lot of different serial killers. I'll kind of get into
BTK.
it. But there's 4 other types of killers after being broken down into just process or product. There's power and control killers, where they get off on being able to hurt those underneath them. And something that he kind of shows an aspect of is that when he's a child, he hurts animals.
Exactly.
Which is something that serial killers oftentimes do because it's power over something that they don't have.
I feel like every single serial killer has killed an animal before killing a person.
A lot. Not because I feel like
how can you just jump from
Bundy wasn't
killing?
Bundy wasn't an animal killer.
He never killed an animal?
I don't believe Geen did. I know Dahmer.
Dahmer definitely did.
He liked to play with bones and stuff like that. I think he killed animals. Cats. I don't. But it's not necessarily a guarantee, but it's a strong indicator.
Interesting.
Then there's visionary killers, which is what I really think he most associates with, which is it's the type of killer where actually even then this is kind of I think kind of gray and it's kind of not as clear cut. But those are more where they feel compelled from a divine force, which I think he kind of feels an aspect of. Then there's mission killers, which they feel like they have a need or an obligation to do it. Which are like the Dexters or even the Hitlers, where they feel like they're doing a greater service for community, which I don't think he's necessarily doing.
No, actually, with all of these versions, I can see a little bit of him in like each one, because with Mission, it was like his duty to create great art, and to show the boundaries of art. How he's like you're putting too much limitations in art, and I
feel like he strongly associates with the visionary killer kind of profile. Because the last one is hedonistic, where it's more about sexual gratification. And that's not something that's really played into in this. Like, he's not aroused by the dead bodies, and he's not aroused by the act of killing.
But there is some, when he cuts off the one girl's breast, that's almost sexual in nature.
It is in a way.
Like humiliating her by cutting off something that would be.
But it's not like he was like beating off to the idea of skinning her.
No.
But that's not.
But he just places it in like the police car's window. I was just like, oh my. Because at first he's like basically comically just admitting every little thing.
He's saying everything
he's
which
done
is something that
in front of a cop, and the cop's like, get out of here, you crazy guy, you fucking crazy.
And there's a lot of parallels to this to real life. Like I think he's very much a Bundy-esque killer. Yeah, because Bundy did the exact same thing, where he's a mildly attractive white man. And to be honest, in the 70s, that got until then,
everywhere.
It got you everywhere. That's the 70s was basically serial killer. There was the most
that were ever in human
history.
The term is from the 70s,
and it was because it was so common and so easy, and people were so trusting. Like, you could invite a stranger into your house, and all these terrible things would happen. Mm-hmm. But he's also had the Ed Gein kind of thing, where he was making a coin purse out of someone's flesh and skin. The nipple thing.
Belt.
Yeah. Well, Gein did a lot more fucked up stuff with that, but that's the big one.
I've just only seen the picture of the nipple belt and then the chair made out of skin.
Oh, he's got drapes. Everything you can name is made out of
I hate skin. I hate human skin.
If they did a Gein movie, it would fuck you up.
I hate human skin.
But they do that, but Ted Bundy, I think, is probably the closest to this in regards to like what he did with the bodies, and he felt like, there was... Because Ted Bundy liked to paint them up and dress them up and make them pretty almost after
I feel
death.
Like with a lot of serial killer movies, when it's a fictitious serial killer, they model it kind of around Ted Bundy.
Yeah, because he's so accessible, and you can actually like kind of almost say he's, in a way, you can turn him into a protagonist of the story.
Exactly.
They give you there's enough to latch onto emotionally.
Because really, to have someone invested in a story, the main character has to be likable. Yeah. Which Ted Bundy was. He was able to fake it well enough that people. He had a natural charisma to him. Exactly. And, like, if you think of that show, You, I feel like takes a lot of inspiration.
A lot of beats from him.
What's another one? What's another serial killer? I just had one in my head.
Like a Dahmer?
No, there was, like, another movie that's a fake serial killer, but it was like Ted Bundy.
American Psycho?
American Psycho is another one.
Yeah.
Oh, Clove Hitch Killer.
Clove Hitch Killer
was like a little mix between BTK and Ted Bundy.
Yeah, and it's, I think this is a very accurate representation, because this is huge spoilers, but he gets caught.
And he gets caught for something he didn't do.
Yeah,
which is how a lot of serial killers got caught. Yeah. They get, like, Ted Bundy got caught because of a ticket or something.
Yep. Well, not necessarily.
I don't remember.
He got caught. But actually, there's a quote that Bundy has that I think really lines up well with this, where he's like, killing is a lot like changing a tire, where it's like, the first time you're really careful, but by the 30th time you're like, oh fuck, where'd the lug wrench go? Which is kind of what happens.
And that's exactly what happens. Because serial killers, he gets more reckless.
Serial killers that get caught, it's because they enter what's called like a berserker state, where their compulsion to kill, the refractory period is so low that they get sloppy. Yeah. And that's where they get caught.
And then also, like with the House of Jack Pill, he almost liked the idea of that he could get caught. Yeah. So he was getting slappier with it, almost to give it more of like a... Because it's like getting a little too mundane. He's like, I'm not getting away with it. I've been doing this for years.
And a lot of serial killers...
slappier with it, so I could at least have some interest.
They elevate themselves above the common people, besides just the murder thing. Because, like, Bundy represented himself in court because he was so confident in his own abilities to be able to get away with it. That's
crazy that he did that. That's a real life story.
Yeah. And well, there was more to it, because he could self-represent and give him full access to libraries and things like that to be able to research his case, and he didn't have handcuffs on at the time, so he could escape, and he did. He jumped out of a building and ran off.
That's a real life story.
It's a real life story.
Happened.
And in The House of Jack Belt, I feel like it paints him in a very believable light. In a way that, like, it's... How crazy it'd be if Lars von Trier came out as, like, an actual serial killer. And this was his confession. This was his, like, I'm going to rub it in everybody's face moment.
Like that scene when he's yelling at the cop.
Yeah. Like, what if this is his...
I could see it. I'm going to be surprised.
Yeah.
It would be surprising, but like, you could definitely see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Him being a serial killer in real life.
But, like, this, I think... This is a very effective, and it is a damn good movie. I'll be honest, I pussed out.
It's a fucking dense movie.
I had to have like a conversation with Pierce today because I was watching
to make sure it didn't get worse than it
because I'm like, because there was one scene in particular where it's just like my own personal like, nope, I'm out moment. It's like
he just like snips off.
He snips a leg off of a duckling and then throws it in the water.
Waddle around and it's all fucked up now.
Yeah. And
then Ben's like he's like this is bad. It's probably gonna get worse. And then he asked me, I was like, I don't think there's any more animal mutilation
because it was really graphic. Like they show the entire process of him doing that.
Also, what makes that scene particularly like
because I can detach myself from killing a person, but in animals like that's different.
Also, it's like how nonchalant he is as a kid to just go like
snip,
just to see what happens.
And before we get into the ending, because I feel like the epilogue is a completely different discussion than the main movie.
I like the epilogue in this movie. It's wasn't expecting it.
No, I was not expecting it. Even though there were some parallels that I was seeing throughout it, to Virgil's
the conversation
having. Well,
because it jumps back to like the beginning of the conversation that you hear in the movie,
the Inferno,
and then you can
written by Dante,
and you can literally now you can have visual to what the conversation was.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts about the main film itself before getting into that?
I think it's still a Von Trier movie, so it has its it has some things weighing it back, but as a whole, the movie I think is worth a check out. I would even revisit. It's one of the few Von Trier movies that I would revisit. I think it's probably the only Von Trier movie that I think I would revisit. And it's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got kind of horror elements. It's got some exciting, very tense scenes. It's got a little bit of humor if you're a little into
if you have a very morbid sense of humor.
Yeah, if you have a little more morbid sense of humor, it's not for everyone. It's definitely not a wide release movie that America is loving.
None of his movies are.
Good Morning America interview with Matt Dillon about
his, how in character he got.
He's like, yeah, so I love this. Just working on it was a blast. Yeah.
There's some scenes where I'm sure after cut happened, they were all dying laughing. Like one of them was playing with the dead kid mannequin they used.
The fake body that they made. It was like, oh look at me, I'm a dumb fucking dead kid.
Yeah, it's they were doing that shit hiding around the office and stuff, fucking with each other. There's no way you didn't, right?
And then also there's scenes where after they yelled cut, the actor had to take oh, I gotta take a fiver after that. I gotta go back to my trailer and think about some stuff.
Yeah, but absolutely fantastic.
And it's.
I don't regret watching this.
It's very. I'm trying to think of the word for it. Not informative, but because I guess if you're interested in how serial killers a mindset of a serial killer, that this would be a good movie to watch, even though it's a fake one. It's not a documentary, but it's still because this movie just displays his thought process. Without just literally saying it just so well.
I think if you have a personal interest in true crime, this is a must watch.
Yeah,
and if you watch this and you like it, you might want to get into some true crime and explore that because, for example, I'm going to do a plug for one of my favorite podcasts. Is check out the last podcast on the left, where they talk about Ted Bundy and his entire case.
Oh yeah, check that out.
And they got a couple parts of their episode in there.
And there's also Serial.
Up to a couple hours. Yeah.
Serial's a very popular podcast, true crime one.
That is another really good one. And I think it's.
Are they still doing that Wolverine podcast?
It was 6 parts, I believe.
Did they already do it?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to listen to it.
It's pretty good. I watched it.
Is it funny?
Or listened to it. It's not funny.
I thought it was. It sounded
it's kind of like an X-Files.
Yeah, it sounded like a humorous thing because it's Wolverine has a podcast, but it's going to be under the guise of it being a real podcast, but it's going to be something like Serial.
Oh, are we talking about the same thing? Because it was like a radio play.
Yeah, it's the one where it's like it's supposed to be like Wolverine hosting his own podcast.
No.
Oh, then we're not talking about.
We're not talking about the same one because there was a podcast where it was more of a radio serial, but it was released on as a podcast about Wolverine or these two government agents investigating Wolverine because there's a possibility that he's been killing a bunch of people.
Oh, okay, maybe we are talking about the same. It's that Wolverine is on the show, like
he's in it, like he's a character,
like someone voices Wolverine.
But it's an audio story.
Yeah, exactly. I think we are talking about the same. Maybe I just got the details.
Yeah, no,
wrong.
it's not like there's a host or anything like that.
I thought it was more like it was under the guise of being a podcast.
No, it's like an audiobook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we're not talking about the same. No,
I'm gonna have to look up see whatever you're talking about.
No, maybe we are talking about the same thing, and I just very misremembered.
It's possible. We'll both have to look into it. But to get kind of back on track, do you want to talk about the epilogue?
Yes, I do want to talk about the epilogue.
So, what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so the epilogue. It's funny. It took me a second to realize what was happening.
It's his descent into hell.
Yeah, and it's him on his way to hell.
Yeah.
It's not him in hell yet, but it's like him on his way.
It's his descent.
It's literally Virgil kind of showing him around.
It basically Virgil functions. This is kind of an allegory both to like Greco-Roman mythology as well as Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, and
where Virgil is basically guiding him through the river Styx initially.
Yeah, and there's a scene where they're on the river Styx, and it looks like a Renaissance painting. Mm-hmm. It's done very slow. Like the slow-mo's like so slow that it looks almost still.
It's like a moving painting.
Yeah, it's like just slightly moving. The actors are all like naked and covered in robes, except for Jack and Virgil.
They all have exaggerated features. They're all...
Jack and Virgil just look like normal people, just kind of in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And then like it's all slow. The splash is crazy, and it's the lighting and it just looks exactly like a Renaissance painting.
Yes, and it's very well done and very interesting, and it's very different than the main film. It's
not how a normal movie would end.
No.
It's very not jarring. It just hits you. It's not what you expected the movie to end like.
Yeah, it goes in an unexpected direction and in a way that I think works really well because it makes no bones about it that like he's a bad person and this is basically his trajectory following his acts in life.
And then there's the scene like the very end of the movie where it's like, yeah, there's a way out over there. If you want to try climbing to it, every single person to try has
failed.
Died. So, but if you want to get it out, if you're that confident, go ahead. I recommend you just come with me, though. I 100% think you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then him being the egomaniac
he thinks he can make it.
He's like,
because everyone else.
He's like, well, I'm going to be the first person that does. And to be honest, he gets very far.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, it's almost as if it's because he has that divine validation that he thought he had. Exactly. He's like, if God really wanted me to, I can cross it.
And then it bites him in the ass at the end.
Yep.
Because it's all in his head.
And as a kind of a footnote, they passed the Fields of Elysium. Which is
I forgot.
Or is it the Fields of Asphodel? I'm not as my memory's kind of failing me on that.
I don't know,
but
the techniques.
Yeah, it's where all the people who weren't great and all the people who weren't bad go in the afterlife. And they have to till the fields of I'm gonna say Elysium in this. It's probably gone backwards. And it's something that reminds him of a childhood because he used to sit in the fields and listen to the field hands cut the grass with the scythe. And he found it very calming and soothing and almost like peaceful. The action of doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's recreated in the afterlife. And it's kind of almost as if like if he didn't commit all the horrible things he did, that could have been where he went and would have found eternal peace
his
almost.
Version of heaven. Because it's not
in a way.
It's not heaven where everyone's partying with
they're not hanging out with my boy JC.
They got JC's got the lean in his Sprite and they're like, hey, what's up? Welcome to heaven. But it's his, it would be like his heaven.
It's a peaceful afterlife.
It would be a peaceful afterlife that he'd be content with.
Mm-hmm. But he keeps going and they mentioned they skipped a couple rings. And they got to the fire and brimstone hell that we think of.
Yeah, basically they kind of skip over some parts and then there's like the pit that where
basically the pit of
where you get killed in the afterlife. Basically,
Yeah,
you don't have an afterlife.
It's the eternal descent. It's a waterfall of lava.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like you don't see the bottom. You don't see him hit the lava because itself is going even deeper.
Yeah, you just see him go down into, and then he until you can't see him anymore because of how far away he is.
And this is something that I don't know how bit of an obscure piece of trivia this is. But something interesting is Virgil talked about how there's this eternal droning that gets louder and louder the deeper you get, because that's all of human suffering condensed into one sound.
Oh yeah, I remember he says that.
And they intersplice this with footage from this Russian mining site, where it's actually, this is like a real thing, you can check it out, where they dug deep enough to mine out, I think it was like natural gas or something like that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like human screams. Like hundreds of human screams, like all overlapped and intermingling with each other. And it's fucking horrifying.
Bit of trivia.
Yeah, and they're drawing those parallels. They keep intersplicing this footage of this Russian mining site as he's explaining. It's like, that's not what people think hell is. You think it'd be all screaming and pain, but it's actually this loud droning. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you knew what you were looking at,
yeah,
you can see where it's like, oh no shit. Okay, that's kind of an interesting thing that builds onto what they're already saying.
That's interesting.
But it exists on its own. It's just kind of like, oh, they're mining. Maybe they're plumbing the depths of metaphorically hell.
Yeah, basically it's okay. I see where you're coming from.
But it's just kind of like a little interesting thing. I think I like the ending of the movie the most, just because there's a lot to piece apart, and there's a lot of stuff I'm sure I missed. They talk about how they let grapes rot on the vine to make wine, and how
I forgot about that.
Death is required almost in a way to elevate something else.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what he's saying about with his art specifically.
Yeah.
Like it won't exist without death.
Without death.
Just like wine wouldn't exist without the drying up of grapes.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about this, but the metaphor of him actually trying to build his house and changing his mind and demolishing it several times. Starting with
new materials.
And at the end, he builds a house of the 60-plus corpses that he had created.
Visually, when it does the reveal, it's
grotesque.
Insane to look at.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrifying.
It's grotesque, it's horrifying, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the purpose, is that there can be art found in the macabre.
That's what this whole movie, I guess, would be.
It is.
It's very macabre.
But
just like that, because you see him building it, and like when they're building it, you don't really see like the full picture. It's a lot of close shots and a lot of like just random things almost look like happening. But then once it shows the reveal, the house that
it all
Jack
comes
built,
together,
and it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
It's a shock on the eyes. It's like
absolutely,
like when it shows the dead kid smiling. It's like the same thing.
Yeah, or when he rolls over the fucked up body that was drugged behind the car.
Yeah, and you see more kids like littered in that the movie doesn't show because he's a serial killer for over 12
60
years.
plus. You don't see all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even see a fraction of them, really.
No, yeah, you only see the time you see the most is when he makes the dead body.
Yeah, and it's kind of effective because it shows that most serial killers, unless they get sloppy, and if you choose your targets at random like he did, you don't get caught. In real life, people get caught because they get sloppy or because they find a type.
Yeah, and they have motive.
If you're
just crazy and you kill random strangers,
it's hard to catch, and that's the scary thing.
It is. And I'm almost disappointed that he didn't get to do the collateral shot at the end.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing we didn't get to see that, but
not even like I wanted to see if it worked in the movie.
Yeah, just because I'm curious. But this is kind of removed from what we're talking about. Do you think this is the ideal first movie to watch if you're going to watch a Lars von Trier film? Because I know they spoil things from his other movies, and I do know what scene you were talking about because you kind of told me in advance. Yeah. But I feel like if you watch this as a primer, do you think you'll be able to appreciate his other films more because you can see that he's trying to produce art through darkness?
That's actually a very good point. I feel like there's certain Lars von Trier movies that you probably should just skip anyway. Yeah. Because they're not really evocative enough to be anything like, oh, you need to watch it for this, and this. And they're not interesting enough. Like Nymphomaniac is one that just don't watch it. Like I think you should. You can if you want to, but it's kind of boring. It's not Lars von Trier really at his best. I feel like the House that Jack Built is up there.
Antichrist, of course.
Antichrist is really hard to watch.
Antichrist has some really bad body horror in it.
That one's very disgusting. This one's more tame visually than Antichrist.
This one?
House that Jack Built.
Yes. Way more visually palatable.
Yeah, and I like that.
And we're talking about literally like
there's
making a house out of corpses and children.
Yeah.
Like, but which is like it's fucked up to say. It's like
subtlety.
This is a 7 for him.
For Lars von Trier, that's pretty tame.
Yeah.
But I would watch it. I think it would be a good primer because if you go in the mindset saying House Jack is Lars von Trier, you kind of get an idea behind his motive before he makes a movie.
Yeah.
And then you watch all of his other movies, and I guess it probably has a different feel to it.
Yeah.
Knowing that. So I think I would agree with you saying it's a good primer Lars von Trier movie.
Yeah. I'm glad you agree. You know what? I'll be honest. Do you have any final thoughts before I move on?
I don't have any final thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. Watch it. Watch it if you can handle.
If you can handle it, you'll find out watch the first 20 minutes or so. Basically, watch until you kill somebody for the first time. If that does not sit well with you, maybe turn it off. I won't begrudge anybody who quits this movie.
Yeah, no, this movie isn't for everyone. And no, it's not like the most shocking movie I've ever seen in my life.
No.
It's not the grossest movie I've ever seen in my life. But it's very dark and it's very bleak.
As TJ would say, it's a cold shower movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you don't leave the movie feeling good.
Exactly.
but you do leave
the exact
movie
opposite feeling of when you left when Ben and I left watching Spider-Verse.
Yeah, but it makes you feel
feeling.
something, and I think that's just as important for film.
Yeah, if
not every movie should be like, wow, that was great.
Yeah, well, this movie was great.
It was great, but it wasn't like, wow, that movie was
great.
so good. I can't wait to. Well, even then, normal people cannot be like leaving. It's like, I'm gonna go tell Grandma about that one.
This isn't like, hey mom, you should watch this movie. This is more like, oh, I need to find people on the internet who like
to
this
talk
movie.
about this one. Yeah, because it's capital G great, not like lowercase g great. If that makes sense in any way. But I'll be honest. To wrap this up, I almost like our 2-person podcasts a little bit more.
the three of us?
Than the three of us. Like, cutting yours and TJ's Society and Coherence episode, mm-hmm. I think we're all a lot more coherent, and I think there's a lot better of a back and forth dialogue going with it. Do you feel the same way?
I feel like...
Do you feel like it's a more personal conversation?
I feel like, well, I think it's also with the format change of us talking about one movie. Mm-hmm. If it's a little more focused with 2 people. With the 3 people, I feel like focusing on one movie has made it better. Yeah.
I feel like we have a great time and we still get kind of sidelined a little bit at times.
But I also kind of like the
I like that. It's different.
So I feel like the one-on-ones it's almost like
they're different.
The difference between watching Half in the Bag or the difference between watching a review and then a best of the worst.
Yes. And I think this
review, it's a one-on-one and it's a very it's a very conversational thing.
Like, Spider-Man was fantastic. If we did a one-on-one for Spider-Man, I don't think it would be nearly as interesting an episode because we were all so high energy and really like it. But this movie, I think, works really well because we can piece it apart and we both have our own takeaways from it. Does that you?
No. Certain movies I could see working better with 3 people, and then certain movies I could see working better with 2 people. Now that's gonna be kind of hard to
consistently do or gauge.
Gauge and practice, because it's like, all right, this one's gonna be best for 2 people to talk about. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
But also, like, you kind of look at like Red Letter Media, where it's like they all kind of cycle out and they weigh in on movies that like review. Like, I like that series because
it's either Mike or Jay, or it could be
Mike plus someone else, or Jay plus someone else, or Macaulay Culkin, or
and someone else.
And I think those kind of work in their own different way. And I think this episode was really good. I think this is gonna be like one of our better ones. I think overall,
content wise,
because I think this is a really good discussion. I think
it may not be one of our funniest episodes.
But I think we had a good conversation.
I think when we do the 3-person episodes, we should just, I don't know, but then because we're gonna want to do a lot of 3-person episodes,
I think we should still focus on. But I just to bring up, I think the 2 episodes, I don't think it's a detriment that we have them in any way. I think
They're not
separate but equal.
It doesn't.
That's not a good term. That's not a good one.
Separate but equal. Different but good.
Yes. Different flavors. One's chocolate, one's strawberry.
I like them both.
You like them both. Some people might have
and
a preference.
And they work good together.
They work good together.
Same waffle cone channel.
There we go. And then every once in a while, we'll release like a mint chocolate chip where it's like, you gotta like this one. Otherwise, you're not.
We'll throw a pistachio your way.
Yeah. I had pistachio almond ice cream the other day.
Interesting. I like pistachio.
It was pistachio ice cream with like chopped up almonds, so it was different. Yeah.
I like pistachio ice cream a lot, actually.
It's good.
It's like one that
underrated classic.
It's one in cartoons that I always get, like cartoons and children media. It's always like, ew, pistachio ice cream.
It's green.
Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of like Brussels sprouts, and pistachio ice cream is good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a fuck. We were kind of
Actually,
long on this one.
Did we?
We're at 42 minutes.
Oh wow.
That's longer than the other two.
Well, that's because this is such a dense thing to talk
This is such a dense thing. And that was even before we got distracted talking about ice cream and like the move 1 or 2 episodes. Like it was already clocked in at like almost like 35, I think.
Nice.
But all right, you want to wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think this one's wrapped up. Watch House that Jack Built. If you can.
If you can.
If you think you can.
Yeah.
If you think you can't handle it, you probably can.
If you've made it through this podcast, you should have a good idea of whether you can take it or not.
Exactly.
And if you don't think you can take it, just fight on through it.
Because I know
you're better off. I did.
Because I know some things can like trigger certain people. Cause
yeah, everybody's got their own like personal.
There's no here. Maybe not trigger warning, but I can tell you what's not in the movie. There's no like rape type.
There's no rape.
There's no.
That's good.
There's no sex crimes in it. So if that's something that like.
That sets you off.
I kind of thought that would be in it. One being a Lars von Trier movie. Two,
there was a scene where it got kind of close,
where he targets women, and there's scenes where he gets kind of close, but there's no kind of like sex crimes happening.
Honestly,
it's mostly him just killing.
There's not even any sexual undertones in this.
Not really. It's not like
not at all because he's not.
And that's what a lot of serial killer movies always go with. They go with either he's getting off with the killing. There's the whole. Or it's part of the killing.
But it's not. So, and to be honest, in real life there are those kinds of killers, but Jack is not one of them.
This movie does kind of give off the vibe that it could be a movie that contains that stuff, and
but it doesn't.
So if that's something that triggers you and you think that's why you don't want to watch it,
but
watch the movie because it's not. That's not.
But good. Horrible mutilation of human and animal corpses, yes.
Horrible mutilation that
and graphic depiction of violence,
and not even graphic, but casual depiction of violence. The way
it's almost removed. Yeah. In a way, the act of killing and the result of it are completely separate.
Exactly.
Because the deaths are usually quick and easy.
But it's
once
like
he figures it out.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the lead up to it that kind of gives it the tension and
yeah. Because it's like, when's he gonna do it? When's he gonna like finish the cat and mouse? When's he gonna strike?
It's going to lead to him killing the person he's talking to.
Yeah,
but he messes with that person's mind. He degrades them.
Like with some again. I think we can't just describe every scene, but
it's fucking good.
But watch the movie.
There's good dialogue. There's good dialogue. If you're into a character study, this is the movie for you.
This is a good one. You could write a paper on this.
If you like American Psycho, then you would like this movie.
I think that is a fair assessment.
That is a very fair. They're very, I think, similar in terms of shocking wise.
Easy.
American Psycho is pretty shocking, especially. Yeah. I mean, I know 2000.
It's not in the same way.
I know 2000,
but it has shocking moments.
Yeah, and I know 2000 wasn't that long ago, but around that time, that's pretty crazy.
Yes, 2000 was almost 20 years ago, right?
Holy shit.
You can't say it was a little while ago. It's like, yeah, you remember when,
just 2000 doesn't feel like it's that far away.
Remember that year before 9/11? It's kind of... It's like... But yeah, it's...
Yeah, so American Psycho is almost 20 years old. Movies like that, I feel like didn't come out very often in that time period.
No.
But nowadays, that's more like an accepted thing in media.
I think the early to mid 2000s are definitely the era of wide appeal. Movies are starting to become a lot more focused with what they want to do, and they don't care necessarily about appealing to everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 20 years ago, I don't think the Lars von Trier, I don't think that would be a name that anybody really recognizes unless you were super into that.
Exactly.
That underground.
If you look at the early 2000s, Lars von Trier one of his first movies was Melancholia, which isn't necessarily a grotesque, shocking movie.
Because even then, back then, he couldn't do what he wanted to do now.
Exactly. So that's actually kind of weird. Melancholia, I want to watch it because that just sounds weird to me. A Lars von Trier movie where someone doesn't get horribly mutilated.
Maybe we should check it out then sometime.
I mean, I hear it's good.
Yeah.
It's got an interesting premise.
Want to do the ultimate feel bad special? Is we just watch all of Lars von Trier's movies and we talk about them.
We watch.
It'll be a 5-hour episode.
we watch Gaspar Noé movies and Lars von Trier movies. I really want to see Climax.
Climax is on my list of ones I watch. I keep going past it every single time that we go to pick episodes to talk about. I believe it's on Amazon. Not positive.
I think I'm gonna watch that one soon.
It's up there.
Because it looks like it has a similar vibe to Enter the Void, and Enter the Void is
Enter the Void was really good.
Enter the Void. I've never seen a movie
like It's got
like
some flaws, but it's good.
Yeah, I know, of course. That's like how Gaspar Noé's movies always are.
Yeah. Did he do Enter the Void?
He did Enter the Void.
Oh, no shit.
He did
Okay.
Climax, Enter the Void, Irreversible.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize Enter the Void was him. That was one that was just on my Netflix queue for a long time, and I finally was like, you know what? Fuck it.
Have you ever seen Love?
Yeah.
That one's a little... his movies are all sad and depressing, too.
Yeah.
Enter the Void. I had never seen a movie like
Enter the Void makes such a sharp turn.
Yeah, it's a crazy movie.
There's so many turns that, like, it keeps you think you've seen everything there is to see in it until it goes to that next level, like, whoa, okay, what the fuck's going on now? That's
a crazy movie.
Yeah.
Have you seen Irreversible?
I've not. That's another one I'm pretty sure is on my list.
Irreversible is hard to watch.
Yeah.
There is, if you want stuff like lasting, like going on for a while, that make you uncomfortable, Irreversible is definitely that. And the whole premise of the movie is that it's reverse chronological order.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the whole movie is done backwards. I mean, they speak forward.
Kind of like Memento, almost?
Kind of, but like, Memento's kind of all over the place. Memento's like going backwards, and then like him trying to find out who he was. This one's more just like... It's a story
literally
that's
shot by shot.
Yeah, it's reverse. like the scenes are just like they took them in reverse chronological. They even put the credits in the front of the movie.
Oh, interesting.
And they go up instead of down, or whatever.
All right, that's pretty cool.
But it works. There's like the purpose, the reason why it's backwards. It makes it a very interesting way to.
Because if you start crazy, it's kind of like, how the fuck did you get there?
Yeah, well, it's also like an interesting way to how like in a movie, things come to light, like details throughout, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Doing it backwards is a very good way of doing that, because it's like, what's going on? Details as you go further back in time, see where the characters were 10 minutes before, 10 minutes before that, 10 minutes before that. It reveals very cool things that it's not very complex of a story, but it works. It's not backwards for no reason. Is what
we should do is we should watch this movie. And then I should cut the movie and put it in chronological order and reverse it, and then make TJ watch it. I'm like, yo, TJ, let's check out Irreversible, and then watch it the wrong way, and then do an episode and just fuck with him and just really confuse him about why we're talking about the way that we watched it.
You cut it, and it's just called Reversible.
There, we found it. We found gold. All right, let's wrap this one up. Check out House That Jack Built or not. We've only said it about 14 times, but it was a good one.
It was a good one.
It was a good one.